for your attention. Today we have Dr. Hannah Leffler here with us. She is a UNT alum. We went to school together, played an orchestra together. She's a flutist and she teaches at UT Arlington music appreciation and music theory. We were just talking about worship this morning. It's a lot. But she's here today to just talk to us about that transition between being in school, starting her own creative ventures, and especially her duo, as you can see up here, Woodwired, which also features another UNT alum, Cheyenne Cruz. So let's hand it over to Dr. Leffler. Thank you.
I'm so happy to be here today. Thank you for having me and listening and being interested in what I have to say. I appreciate it. I just finished my doctorate in 2018, so it's still pretty fresh. I walked back in and was like, lecture recital, I was triggered. But no, it's really good to be back, and I'm happy, I'm excited to talk to you about my duo and just kind of the process of finding something creative to do that's a little bit outside of the box from just getting a music degree. It's something that I'm passionate about, and Cheyenne is also passionate about. She wishes so much she could be here, so hello from Cheyenne. We usually do these things together, so half of Woodwired is better than no Woodwired, is our motto, but I'm glad to be here. So we met in school here at UNT getting our doctorates, and actually played together in the Center Wind Quintet, and did the fish-off competition, plowing competition, and did all of that. And she was a couple of years ahead of me, so she finished her degree, and she always likes to say that we kicked her out of the quintet because she had the audacity to graduate before the rest of us. And so we decided that we had to keep playing together. And so that was kind of our number one goal, is that we want to play together more importantly than anything else. So let's find a way to make that happen. So we just kind of had a crazy idea to arrange something for one of my doctoral recitals. And Cheyenne introduced me to Michael Lowenstern, who's a super cool bass clarinetist who does similar things to what we do out of New York. And he kind of sells backing tracks to his music so that you can perform it. And we were like, what if we took that music and then didn't use the backing track and did it all live on stage with looping? Surely there's probably a really cool way to make that work. That'll be great. And we got his permission and did that, and realized how cool it was and how much we loved it. And that was kind of the beginning, and then we just haven't stopped. And so I just want to talk to you a little bit about that process and some things that we have learned and are continuing to learn. That was back in, I guess, 2014. And so we have since recorded an album that's been released through UTA Records, and are traveling and performing a bunch and writing a ton of music and working on our second album right now. And so just want to talk to you a little bit about that and take your questions. But if you're not familiar with our music at all, I thought I'd start with playing a video for you of us performing live, since we couldn't both be here to perform for you. We're hoping to do a full concert here in the spring. I'm working on it, but I'm just going to play a video for you of a live performance we did of one of our original pieces, Bear. And it's a video that you'll be able to tell a little bit. We have a cart that we use all live electronics. So everything we do is done on stage in that moment. So we're not using backing tracks, we're not using pre-recorded things, unless it's a pre-recorded sound that we trigger live. And so we use foot pedal boards and microphones and have a whole setup there. So this video shows it pretty well, and then I'll explain a little bit after we watch it. So this is Bear, one of our original pieces. idea of what we do. So we are kind of marrying the worlds of live electronics, but also kind of we use effects a lot of times that like an electric guitarist would use or rock bands would use. And so we can do all of that to our microphones, and so we're kind of a fusion style group. So how did we get there? Because I certainly never saw myself in if you had asked me when I was 18 what my dream was, it would not have been to be in a bass, clarinet, flute, live electronics group. And it certainly is not simple to travel around and perform with electronics. If any of you do that, you know it is complicated, and we do a lot of road tripping because we have a lot of equipment. And but it just kind of the opportunity presented itself, and we took it. And I think that that's an important thing to keep in mind. So we, like I said, the thing that got us into this was wanting to stay together and stay playing with each other. And so I think that, and Cheyenne always emphasizes this when we talk too, is that for her, I know one of the most important things is the people that you're working with in an endeavor like this, in a small group, in a chamber group setting or something like that. We can't always only work with people we like. We know this, okay? But in something like this, where it's something that we started, something we're going to be traveling around performing, the relationships you have with those people are the most important things. And so Cheyenne is by far one of the closest people in my life, and that's a good thing because we spend more time together than we do with anybody else. And I think that was something that we saw in each other and kind of grabbed onto, and then made this kind of crazy, weird, cool thing happen based around that. So I think some of the things that are really important for me are that I always say to people when we talk in different places are, as you're going through school, and this is something that I just feel really passionate about, is the best advice I could give anybody is to stay open-minded about your career path. Stay open-minded about your education. Stay open-minded about what you're interested in. Because you just never know. You never know what the opportunities are going to be for you. You never know what you might end up developing an interest in. I was a person who had played with electronics some, in a limited sense, but never in this kind of situation, and never did I see that being kind of the main performance thing that I did. And so as you're going through education or just life, I think it is just so important to be willing to try new things, be willing to be open-minded, even if you are 100% set that you are going to be a symphony player or administrative person or a developer or whatever it is that you're wanting to be. If you are not open-minded, you can miss some things that might actually be your favorite thing that you do. And so that is as simple as take some classes that you might not otherwise be interested in taking. I am so grateful because in my undergrad, everyone, if you were a performance or education major, you're required to take a very simple jazz improv class. And we all complained about it, those of us who were classical and we weren't going to be jazzers and we didn't know anything about jazz and I was not going to perform jazz. I liked jazz, that was not my path. And I was like, oh, this is my jazz improv semester, and I kind of like, ugh. And it's terrifying if you don't know jazz. And it's, and I went in and I took that class and I learned so much. And then after I took that class, and I am by no means, I don't consider myself a jazz person still, but I after that class, they asked me to come in and do a concert with the jazz band, and I was terrified, and I was like, why would I do that? And I just did it. And you know what? Like, I use some of those skills all the time now, and I intentionally seek out people who are really good at jazz to get help. I teach at a summer festival for a month every year, and I always go to the guy who teaches jazz and get help and have him help me work on improv, and he makes me sit in with the student jazz group on the final concert just to torture me and make sure that I'm staying up on that. And I intentionally put myself in those kind of out of my comfort zone arenas. And that little thing I had to do in my undergrad when I was 19 has come back full circle. Same thing with composition class. Was not planning to be a composer. And I write a ton of music and arrange a ton of music now because there's not music written for flute and bass clarinet and electronics. So we started by arranging music, and then we were like, you know what? Let's try our hand at writing our own music, and we love it. I love writing our own music, and our originals are my favorite things that we play. Because we're able to kind of uniquely write for our specific setup and our specific needs and what we want our music to be and what we want our vibe to be. But I think it's really easy to, especially when you're in school, when you're in education, and I've done it. It's really easy to kind of get in the zone about, well, this is what my career path is going to be. And then sometimes we graduate and we finish and we're like kicked out of the nest into the world, and it's kind of like, and I have felt that, 3 times. And there is you have such a, when you're in school, you have a path that's laid out for you, right? It's like we're headed to our next semester, and then we're headed to our next recital, and then we're headed to finishing this year and passing our, capstone or our, whatever it is, and then, we're doctoral students, we have to write the dissertation, and then we, defend it and the whole thing, and then you're done. And it's kind of like, now what? Now what do I do now? And so for me, and I know for Cheyenne, Woodwired was a great thing to have for a creative outlet. And I'm so glad that we kind of like made this happen. And so you don't know what skills you're gonna need. So if you have the opportunity to learn something new, to learn a new skill, to learn a new instrument, even outside of music, to learn a new skill in business or in game playing or take an improv class, right? Take a stand-up comedy class. Make yourself as well-rounded as possible as an individual. And that's not to say to not focus. We need to focus on our goals, and that's not to say that you won't reach your goals. But in the meantime, don't forget that there's like a whole world of things to do out there. There's a lot of other things that can bring you happiness, and that you need to kind of seek those out and find them. And even if you land your dream job in or right out of school, and that's amazing, and I hope that you do, you need to have a life outside of that, right? Education in college is so much, it is about so much more than getting a music degree. It's about learning to be a person, learning to be a well-rounded adult, learning to exist in the world as someone that people would want to be around that can give back to the world, right? It's about a lot. And so I just cannot emphasize that enough, that find something that's outside of your comfort zone and learn it. Learn a sport. I make a point every year of trying to learn to do something new because I need to remember what it's like to be a beginner at something, right? So one year I learned golf, and I was terrible, and I still am, but I went through the process of learning golf, and it was like, oh, this is what it feels like to be really terrible at something and be hanging out with somebody that's really good at it, right? And they're like, oh, well, just move your foot to the left and it's fine. And I'm like, how did you know that? Like, I didn't know that. And it's the same thing as music teachers, right? When we're teaching or educating or learning something new. So that's my main kind of platform or thing is be well-rounded. If an opportunity comes up, take it. Learn to do something new because you just never know when you're gonna find an opportunity to combine all of these skills that you've gotten into one cool thing that you really love, right? So that's kind of the first thing that I have really learned from this, and that I would encourage you to learn from this. So in addition, as you are, I always wanted to be in a chamber music group. I love chamber music, and so kind of throughout all of my degrees, I was kind of looking for something to be a part of. It's like, I want to have a flute duo, or I want to have this. or that, and I kind of tried that out a couple of times, and I was constantly trying to kind of make something happen. But it was really when I stumbled upon something that I felt like was unique and filled kind of a gap, that was when I really kind of hit on it. And that's, I think, something that Woodwired kind of does, is it's unique, and it hasn't been done a lot in the exact way that we do it. And so that provides us the opportunity to kind of tap into that when we're looking for opportunities to play, when we're looking for audiences. And so I think that you need to kind of stay on the lookout for that, right? And this is the same if you're like trying to figure out what to write a thesis about or what to write your dissertation about. You're looking for a different, and it doesn't even have to be something that's never been done before, but it's something that you have your own unique spin on, right? There's a lot of really, really good, really famous wind quintets in the world, right? So you are less likely to be successful as we're a wind quintet going out in the world performing normal music, as it would be if you were a wind quintet who specialized on female composers from somewhere, or a specific composer that you wanted to get out there, or a wind quintet that played in a unique way or did something cool, or I think that it's important to kind of keep a lookout for those things as you go through, and then when you find them, take them, right? And I think that's something about Woodwired that has helped us to be successful, is that we have worked really hard to be marketable and to kind of appeal to a wide range of audiences. So when we go to a university to perform, we appeal to the clarinet studio, the flute studio, the electronic music people, the composers, right? And then also, our music is just most of it, I hope, is just pretty fun to listen to, right? So just the general public as a whole. And so it is, that gives us an opportunity when we're sending out emails or trying to find places to go visit, or wanting to schedule a tour or something like that, to say, hey, we can do anything from just a concert or a talk to this whole array of things that we can do at your school, right? You can have us come give independent master classes, and we're both, successful performers in our own right, so we can give independent master classes, just totally normal master classes, or we can do a chamber group master class, or we can do an electronics master class, which we have done, or we can do a talk about composing for this kind of group, or we can, how do you put this music in finale and make it look a way that we could read it, right? Because that's tricky. We get asked that all the time. Like, how do you put loops in a score if I wanted to write a piece for you? And so there is a lot of different things we can touch on that makes it easier for schools to be like, hey, let me pull money from these different departments so that we can bring you here, rather than just, I want to come perform this one thing. So if you find opportunities that kind of appeal to a wide variety of things, those are good opportunities. Those are things to look for. And that wasn't something we necessarily thought about up front when we started this, but as we have kind of, now that we're, I guess, like 5 years in, we're kind of like, this is super cool because it gives us these kind of unique opportunities that we might not have elsewhere. And then in addition, outside of the university, we can play in bars, and we do. We can play in art galleries, and we do. So we have different sets of music that we play. We have Led Zeppelin, right? We have Brown Eyed Girl. We have all of that stuff that if someone wants us to come play at a party, we just played at an anniversary party in Dallas in someone's house, and just a couple of weeks ago, and it worked great because we have a set of music for that works for that isn't our like most academic or out there music or anything like that. So, and it's music that people know. If we go to a university, we play a different set of music. So it's just kind of like it covers a lot, and we've intentionally left it that way because we get a lot more opportunities that way. And you don't have to approach it like that, right? You can definitely have like a specific niche that you stay to, but if you are looking for things that you can create, things to promote that are yours, because it's hard for me to explain, but it's terrifying to put ourselves out there like this, but it also is the most rewarding thing in the world to talk to people after we perform or give master classes and be like, we did this, like we came up with this. No one was like, here is how you do a standard bass, clarinet, flute, electronics group. Here's your setup. We figured it out as we went, and we had ideas of pieces, and we were like, what if we could write a piece that we had like 9 loops that were all in different meters, and then we want to modulate the pitch of all the loops, but keep them going the same speed so they don't speed up. And then what if we took those and made them backward? And then we made sure that it didn't slow down when it went backwards, and we can add that one back in, and we'll play the whole thing in retrograde. We just wrote a piece doing this, by the way, last week we finished it. And so no one told me how to do that, or Cheyenne how to do that. We just have these weird ideas all the time. And we're like, I don't know if the machine can do that. Let's figure it out. I think it probably can. So we went to the University of Google a lot, and trial and error a lot. And we have these crazy ideas, and we'll write a whole piece, and then at the end of the whole process, we're like, it just doesn't really work. Okay, let's keep trying. Let's reformat it. Let's do something different about it. What is it about this that doesn't work? Let's not give up on this idea. We have some we've given up on. We always like to joke that Cheyenne is the ideas person. And so she always has these, she's just this constant creative force that is just spitballing ideas all the time about everything, right? We play Dungeons and Dragons together. She's the dungeon master. She has all these ideas constantly and just this creative stuff, and I am the editor. So I am the person who has the veto power of, that's a terrible idea, and we're not doing that, right? Her piece, Cyborg Queen, never lived to see the light of day. But we need both of those things. So that kind of takes me to my next thing, is find people to work with that counteract your weaknesses and strengths, if possible. That is something that has worked very well for us, is that the things that I am really good at, she is not as good at. And the things that she is really good at, I'm not as good at. And so we have an open understanding about our strengths and weaknesses, and we're honest with each other about those things. And so we are able to not be offended, not all the time, we're not perfect at it, but not be offended when she says, something to me about, I don't really like the way that you wrote that, I think it'd be better if we did this, I really want to spit out, I want this to be the way that this sounds, and I'm not a big fan of the solo that you wrote for that. So let's keep working on it. She can't be offended when I say, I know you've got 15 new piece ideas, but we have 25 emails to answer, so I need you to sit down with the computer and answer 10 of them. Go, don't get up, right? Because she doesn't like that part. We kind of counteract each other in that way, and I think that's a really important thing in the thing that you work with, because we're kind of doing it all at this point, right? We're our marketing manager, all right? We're our marketing person, we're our PR person, we are our own composers, we do the tech, we do all of it, and so we have to kind of have a sense of whose strengths fall into what categories, and so whose time is it to kind of rise up and be the one who takes the lead on a project. And then the other one has to be willing to listen to that and go along with it even if we don't feel like it. And so that is something I think that is really important, that you need to look for in the people that you work with. And then once you find those people, don't let them go. Find something that works, find something creative, and then be honest with them and let them be honest with you. And develop a thick skin, right? It's easy, you have to be vulnerable with people that you work with so closely, and you have to be willing to acknowledge that you're not perfect. I know, I'm not perfect, it's hard to believe of you, okay? You have things that you are innately good at. You have things that you have worked to be good at, right? We all have things that we naturally kind of do well, and then things that we have worked to be really good at. And then we all have things that we just aren't as good at. And that's not to say we can't work to be better at them, but we all have things that it's like, I'm never going to be as good at this as you are. So I'm going to let you kind of have the reins on this, and I'm going to have the reins on this. And that's not to say that we don't both do everything. We do, but we are also go out of our way to be incredibly honest with each other about those things and when we need to do things and stay organized. And we're both willing to be the bad guy sometimes, right? I sometimes have to risk, making her mad and being like, no, we're not writing new music today. We are way behind on this list of to-dos, right? And vice versa. This goes both ways. So I think that's just kind of an important thing to look for in the people that you work with. How am I doing on time? What time is it?
11:30.
Oh, okay, cool. All right. Anything else? Oh yeah, and then the other thing, just one last kind of thought, and then we'll do questions and things like that. But is to, as you go through school, and this is something that is really important, I think, is think long term about the relationships that you develop with your fellow colleagues and your professors and your teachers, and even professors that you think, well, this isn't in my field, and when I finish this, I'm going to be done, and whatever, and or colleagues that graduate and move on. These are going to be the people that invite you to come play. These are going to be the people that have jobs 10 years from now, or whenever you are building a network while you are in school. You are building a network all of the time, and that network is what provides you with opportunities. And so, be professional, right? That's not to say don't let loose and have a good time. I'm not saying that. I'm just saying make sure that you don't burn bridges unnecessarily or drop people if you don't need to. Maintain good relationships with your teachers and your mentors and your fellow students, because we have been invited to play by so many people that we both went to school with that I never thought I would see again, right? That I just it never even crossed my mind. They weren't in my direct circle, but that people, and this goes for both of us, that when we combine our kind of lists of contacts, it's huge, because we've both been to 3 universities and we've both lived life and we've both taught at a number of universities. And that network is bigger than you think, but people remember more than you think, right? And the same thing goes when you go to apply for jobs and get jobs. But just even for your own creative output that you're trying to get opportunities or promote your product or whatever it is, people want to work with people that are nice and professional and cool, right? And so be nice, be a good colleague, right? That's not to say don't be genuine. That's not to say you have to hang out with a bunch of people you can't stand. Be authentic, be true to yourself, all of those things, but be a good colleague. Be a person that you would want to work with. So that 15 years from now, that person that you forgot about that was in your theory class or in your seminar or whatever, that you completely have forgotten exists, when you're traveling to their part of the country and you want to play at their university and you're like, oh, I know the person who teaches at that university, and you reach out to them, don't be a person that they're like, oh, no, couldn't stand them. You might be a totally different person in 15 years than you are now, right? I'm a different person than I was 15 years ago, thank goodness. But it is important that you be a person that, they don't know that you're a different person than you were when you were around them. So keep that in mind as you're having interactions, and I'm not talking about your closest circle, right? I'm just talking about the people that we play in ensembles with, and the people that we interact with, and our professor that's teaching a gen ed class that we don't know that we'll see. You just never know. So keep that in mind as you interact with people. It matters, and it will matter for a long time. That's what you're doing here, is kind of creating your base network, and that's really important. So anyway, okay, I will stop with my talking there. I think I'll last 15, 20 minutes for questions, if anybody has any questions for me. Yes, Tyler.
So outside of your recital, when was the first time when you trying to perform together? And what would you say that you learned?
Okay, let me think. Oh my gosh, I have to think. What was our first thing after that? Oh, I know what it was. We played a small little performance for there was a guest artist coming through, and I was still in school, so we played a small performance in kind of a master class, just like an electronics kind of showcase thing. And our setup was not nearly what it is now. And we did not allow for how long it took us to set up. We just were too new to it. And so at my recital, we had a whole plan, and we had like practice, like bringing, and it's really hard to play on a program that isn't just we do it all the time, where we just play a single piece at the end or something at like conventions and things like that. But it's challenging because there's always a very quick setup time. And so we didn't have a sound check in the hall. We didn't know anything about it. And Cheyenne raced in from work, and I raced in from something else. And the whole thing ran long. And so, and it was our fault. We had no idea how long we needed to be comfortable to perform. And so she forgot her harness, so she had to sit down, and she was trying to use foot pedals and sit down, and at that point we were sharing a foot pedal board. So, I was doing this, and our sound was all off, and it did not go super well. And we realized, like, we need a lot more time. You can't race into a performance like this like you can just an acoustic instrument where I just run in and pull my flute out. Not that that's ideal, but you can do it, right? You can't do that. And also we learned that we need to double and triple check our list of equipment before everything. So I now ask Cheyenne all the time, because I've never forgotten it, do you have your harness? What's the last thing? Where do you have your harness before we drive off in the car to go to any gig? Do you have your harness? And we have a checklist that we go down out loud verbally before we go anywhere. So other than that, we have never forgotten something important yet, because that was the time. And it was in a pretty minimal setting, and I'm glad that that's the lesson we learned at that time. Yeah, so I think that was the one. Yeah.
What were the steps, like after the conception of the idea, what were the steps you took to create the official group and branding and stuff?
Okay, so that we kind of just, it was very gradual for us. So we started by just making something for my recital and making sure it worked. And as we were doing that, we were like, oh, because we had no intentions of forming a group. We were just gonna do something cool. I didn't want to do just a normal recital. I wanted something that, as is me with everything, I was like, no, this has got to be the coolest thing anyone's ever seen. And so we worked on that first, and in that process we were like, this is something. We need to not stop doing this. And at that time, Cheyenne was kind of in that phase where she had finished her doctorate, and she didn't have a university job yet at that time, and so she was doing a lot of random teaching and things, and needed a performance creative outlet. And so she kind of was a big force. I was still in school, and so she was kind of a big force behind being like, I have a lot of extra creative energy to put into this right now, because I'm not, you kind of hit that, I'm done now, what do I do? And so as we went, it was very gradual. We're like, okay, we need a name, we need a Facebook page, we need a social media presence. And we did a lot of that before we had enough music to even play a concert. And that was kind of our, we went that first. And then as we started creating our first original music, we made our own videos and put them out on the internet, which was terrifying, and just very gradually started kind of building that. And then we reached out to kind of our closest contacts for our first tour, to go perform at universities, and we pretty much did it for free. It was like, if you can put us, give us a place to stay, we'll come. So we probably lost money on that one, but it was worth it, because then everywhere we went, we got more people on our Facebook page, and more people on our Instagram, and more people watching our videos and things like that. So we kind of did some of that when we had just a little bit of music, and then we basically set a date for ourselves about a year in that we were like, we are giving a concert at UNT on the Square. A full concert of music. We need to have a full set done by that. And that gave us kind of a date, an end date, which is we both thrive on, because we were, academic people, we need that due date. And so when we did that, we invited all our friends and like a whole bunch of people, and that was kind of our, okay, now we have a full concert set worth of music that we can go do things. And then we have since then just added and added and added and taken things away and that kind of thing. But yeah, we kind of branded a little bit before we had the full amount of music to back it up, but because we did that, we were like, oh, this is official now. You know, and our first photos we had a friend take, and we like, you know, did that kind of thing, and then eventually made enough money to like have photos taken and, you know, do a whole thing. So it was very gradual. Our equipment was very gradual as well. We had to just play a gig. We played some terrible gigs, even not Woodwired gigs. We took some gigs that were like, and we were just like, it's for Woodwired so that we can buy our microphone. It's for Woodwired so we can buy our thing that we really need. So we just were patient. Yeah, and just kept working at it. Yeah. Yes.
Yeah, I mean, kind of going on what you were just talking about, the equipment, obviously there's a lot of it, it costs a lot of money. How do you fund?
Okay, so we basically, initially, Cheyenne had some like speakers already because she had done some working with electronics before that. So we were lucky in that sense. But all of our current equipment, we have basically played a gig, made money, bought a new piece of equipment. So basically everything that we made, we would put back into our equipment until we kind of had this set up. And it's been like in the last year and a half that we've been like, we're making money. Like we've paid off, we've made more than we have spent, but it took a while. It was our creative outlet, not our income for a while. But we also had to be patient about, we want this, but we're not making money, so we can't buy that right now. And then we did put some personal as we would, like we really need this thing, so let's go 50-50 and buy this thing that's going to make our life a lot better, sort of a thing. Yeah.
How did you start getting gigs that would pay you? Because at first you were just doing something for free, so
yeah.
To pay for the equipment, how did you start changing that?
Well, we went from and it kind of goes hand in hand, and we're still figuring some of this out. Like we're still relatively new, right? But we went from, please allow us to come play at your university so that we can, I think you'll like it, right? Can we please come play, to, would you like to have our group come to your university, or like having a set fee structure for like bars or wine bars or things like that, but also kind of like the way that we present ourselves when we're looking for opportunities to play. Once we have that base enough, and once we have enough music, and once we have enough product, we will send emails that are, and part of this was like reading emails that guest artists sent us that wanted to come to different places and being like, how did they do this? Because we aren't, neither one of us really like the money conversation part of it. It's not in either of our like favorite things to do, but it's part of it. And so kind of just figuring that out as we went, and then presenting it as, here's the product, let's discuss if you have any money for us to come to your university this year, kind of a thing, rather than, please allow us to come, which you have to do for a while. I mean, that's part of it. And we were lucky in some places we're like, yes, come, we have a little extra money, and that, that kind of thing, but we just have worked more and more into that. So, yeah. Anybody else have questions?
I have one from the discussion board.
Yeah,
So
yeah.
we have 5 minutes left, but a couple students asked about your time management. So
Okay.
if you could just tell us what else you do so we can see a full picture of your
Yes.
experience, and then how you can balance your personal
Yes. Okay. So I am way too busy, but I teach 4 classes at UTA, which is a lot. One of my classes has 156 students in it. So that I do that, and I have an 8 o'clock class every morning at UTA, and then some days I have a couple of classes after that. And then I teach about 25 private students in the Prosper area, private flute students. And then I also teach flute at El Centro College in Dallas. So one thing that has been tremendous this year, because we used to basically we would both work all day. I cut down my student load this year. I used to have like 40 students, and we would work all day. We would both teach, and then come home at night and write music and rehearse and drink wine and do all of that, kind of combine all of that into an evening. One thing that has been really good for us this year was that I started teaching at UTA, which is Cheyenne is the clarinet professor at UTA as well. And so it has been incredible. We just, at the beginning of the semester, before we did anything else, we figured out Woodwired days and times, and we just blocked those off on our schedule, put X's through them, no lessons, nothing else. Because it's really easy to think you're going to do that and then start to like, oh, I can just teach one extra little thing there, or I can meet with you during this time. So we just blocked that off and we protect it with our lives. Like, no, you may not come by my office at that time. No, I am not available for a meeting. No, I am not, because that is our work. So now we can just do it at UTA while we're at work, and we get a lot more done. So we're not tempted to like watch TV for a little while and then, Woodwired. So we meet and we start writing, and while we're at work, and then we can go home and relax. So we've tried to put that more into our work day rather than only at night, which we have the luxury of doing this year, which has been great. And then if we need extra rehearsal time and stuff, we rehearse on the weekends. We constantly communicate about, are you going to have this thing written by this day next week, and I'll have this done by this time next week, and things like that. So we kind of divide and conquer in that way. Yeah. But having time that you kind of protect, I think, is really important. We've tried that in the past, and then neither of us protected it very well, and so it lasted like 3 weeks. And then this year we were like, no, this is our time. So.
Thanks.